So the first question would be, what does it mean to option a book?
So to option a book, and it goes for a magazine or a screenplay or even a record, if you want to, it's essentially somebody else's literature or artwork that you like and you respond to and you have a connection to, and you want to adapt it into something else. So most commonly for me, it's like a novel that I really responded to, and I want to turn it into a screenplay because that's what I do. So optioning it means that you literally have the option to make it for a certain amount of time. It's usually between 12 and 18 months. So you'll make a deal with an author or their estate or their representation, and you have 12 to 18 months to actually turn that into a new piece of art that you want to turn it into.
When you're optioning it, are you able to, does the author tell you what you can use or can't use, or is it just everything that's in the book you can use?
It would be extreme. You can use anything in the book, okay, and you can add anything to that book or omit anything from that book that you see fit for whatever your platform is. It is extremely rare that the author would ever have any input into the screenplay. They usually are very aware that that's not their bag. Like they do books,
yeah,
or whatever they do. So they usually don't have any input, nor do they even really want any input into whatever you're creating out of it.
So you get 100% creative control after you've optioned it for that amount of time.
You do, and there's a lot of stories with famous authors even who were very dissatisfied with the film adaptation. It usually has to do with the ending, because books can end in like a less Hollywood happy ending. And studios always want movies to have a happy ending. So we did one actually called My Sister's Keeper, which has two sisters, right? One of them gets into the book, they die. The movie, she doesn't. And the author was not super happy about that, but I agree with the choice that the writer has made for the screenplay, because that would be kind of a drag. And it's a really good movie and a really good book, but it's two different mediums, and I think that was the right decision.
Can anyone option a book? Like, do you have to be in the film industry to option it, or does it just help to be in the film industry?
Anybody can option a book for any reason, and there's books from every decade, right? So like the modern books, especially if it's a popular book, it's likely that somebody will have optioned it. There's been so many books I've called about that Reese Witherspoon already optioned, because she has so many books optioned. But using, and then my uncle, who's a rabbi in Texas, he actually just called me about a book from the 40s that he wanted to adapt because his daughter is a film student and she wants to turn this into a movie, into her first movie. And that's from the 40s, so the author's deceased. But I gave him some tips on how to find the rights holder for that book. And it's usually, if the spouse is living or like an estate, they will have access to the book. So anybody can option it if they're willing to track down the rights. So the first step would be to call the publisher or the agent if they have one listed. Usually for older books though, that's not even that clear of who their agent is. And then so if that doesn't work, then the next step is just to go straight internet sleuth with it, which is what I did for Cold Moon actually. The writer of Cold Moon was a guy named Michael McDowell, very popular. He was a very Stephen King-esque screenwriter. He died in 1999, but not before he wrote Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice. So he didn't have an agent anymore. He did have an estate, but it wasn't clear where he was. So I went online and I searched him, saw that he was married to a man who was still alive. And so I started, I started stalking online his spouse, who ended up teaching, he was still a teacher at a university in Boston. And so I saw him on the registry, and then I went in and I literally called Boston University and I asked to be transferred to him, and I got his voicemail, I left him a message, and I heard back from him. And it took a couple of weeks to figure that out. And it does help to have experience in the film industry because it's instant credibility. But I think what's more important is your vision and passion about the material, because that was one of the first movies I made. So I was still in the industry, but I didn't have a huge track record, but I knew the book backwards and forwards. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I love the book, I still love the book and the movie. And so I think when we spoke, he could hear how serious and passionate I was about the material. And that's more important, I think, than any experience. If you have a vision for what the adaptation will be, and then a plan to get it to a broader audience.
If you make like a lot of money out of it, does the author get a percentage, or is that in a contract?
It's all negotiable. Yeah, so it really depends on the book and the popularity of the book. Yeah, it's very common for them to want a percentage of it. It's usually a net percentage, and the movie's very expensive, and the marketing of the movie is very expensive. So they would go into the net profits pool with everybody else, the director, the actors, and if the movie is very successful, then yes, they would see a part of it. Another common deal point that they could ask for is like a production bonus. So usually how the option works is you'll pay anywhere from $1,000 to $30,000 just for the ability to make the movie. So you have 18 months to actually make the movie. And that it's called an option purchase agreement. And then, so say you pay $1,000 and you have 18 months to run with this thing and turn it into a play or a comic book or a TV show or a movie. If you actually get it off the ground and you start making it, then another payment is due to the author, and that's the purchase agreement. So then you'll purchase it. So I think for this one, it was like $1,000. And then once we actually went to production, we owed another $30,000 to be able to own it. And now we own that screenplay and the rights to make this into a movie forever because we actually produced it. If we didn't produce it, the rights revert back to the author and they get sold to someone else.
So let's just say you've got the option and everything.
Yeah.
Is it as easy a sell to get the funding to make that
Yes.
than starting from scratch?
Yes, with a asterisk. So I would look at funding a picture in like blocks. So, and you have to do them in a certain order. So first would be the story, right? So whether you write it or you're optioning something that pre-exists, like that's the first block, is to have the story. And so say funding is up here and building the path to get to that is down here. So having source material to go from is like the first little block. And if it's phenomenal source material, it has like great reviews on Goodreads, or it's a New York Times bestseller, then absolutely, it like shoots it way up in anybody's interest because it has some kind of social proof that this is a story that people care about, you know?
Okay, yeah.
If it's a book that nobody's heard of ever, then it doesn't really matter because it might as well just be original because you can't point to anything on it. So on Cold Moon, for example, let's go to My Sister's Keeper. My Sister's Keeper was a new-ish popular novel. So that helped. The next step which was to attach Nick Cassavetes as the director. So that's like the next block of it. With Cold Moon, though, it was an old book. Nobody really knew about it. So it wasn't really, having the book didn't help get it made, but it did help make a great screenplay because it was a great movie. And then that helped attach Christopher Lloyd and Josh Stewart and some other bigger actors to it. But that's to say that, like, if you get a book, that's a great step, and it's going to help you attract a good writer. So that's another step if you're not going to write it yourself. And then a good script based on source material will help you attach a good director, which is the next logical step. And then you can't really attach cast until you have a director. So once you have a good script with a good director, you can attach cast, and then you can finance, usually.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you can jump from getting the book to financing it without all those things, but that's just very difficult. So every time you put a new writer, a director, and an actor on it, it just increases the chances like tenfold. I would say certainly you need to have a screenplay to be able to take it out. Now, whether or not you have to pay a writer is depending on what kind of writer that you're trying to get. Like on this one, we didn't pay a writer. On Cold Moon, I wrote it myself because the book was very cinematic. It was an easy adaptation for me to do. You can even get a writer with a ton of credits, who's done a lot to do it on spec if they love the source material too. So maybe they're familiar with the book and they could say, I know this book and like, I love the idea of doing this. I'm just going to do it in my free time and give it to you. And then once you get it made, you can pay me for writing the script. So you don't necessarily have to pay a writer. Now, if you do have money to pay a writer, it makes it easier and it opens up the possibilities of which writers you can hire. And then in terms, directors are kind of the same thing. So once you have a great screenplay, 99% of directors, you can attach them without putting any money down. There's like, if you're going after a massive busy director and you want them to put their name on it, you probably have to pay them a hold fee. But 99% of directors, if they love the material, they'll be like, I want to do this. And I'll help you get it together. Like they'll help you cast, they'll help you do everything, but you don't have to pay them in advance. Very standard is a 12-month option or an 18-month option with the right to renew for an additional 12 or 18 months. Like that's what's standard, but you can negotiate anything. So but usually what happens is like the renewal gets more expensive. So if you're paying $1,000 for the first 18 months and you don't get it made, then it's $5,000 if you want to take it off the market for another 18 months. So it gets expensive. And then if those 3 years have gone by and it hasn't gotten made, it's usually because the production company hasn't cracked the story or it's not as good of a adaptation or product that they want it to be. So they're usually willing to let it go. And they also don't really want to hold the author up from turning this into a movie if they aren't interested in it. But you could also, in theory, just purchase the screenplay. So if you option it for $5,000 and the purchase price is $500,000 and you have tons of money, you could just say, I'm just going to buy this book and I have it forever. And I never want to make any, even if I don't make it, I own this book. So you could take it off the market forever, but you usually want it because it's not worth spending that kind of money if you don't think you're going to make it.
How would you, if you're not writing it, what to adapt and what to keep like raw? And how do you, do you like restructure like scenes, not scenes, but like moments? If it's in this order in the book, do you switch it around to make it more exciting? Or
that is that's the art of the adaptation, which is why it's a separate Oscar than original screenwriting. And in some cases, it's more straightforward because you have a book. I've always optioned books that are already very cinematic, and it's essentially a screenplay already, just too long. But there are books like Adaptation, that Nick Cage movie that I think Charlie Kaufman wrote it, which is not a straightforward adaptation. It's like, how the hell are you going to adapt this? And that's a totally different story. But I think traditionally what happens is characters get combined because you have too many characters in a novel, too many people in and out. So usually characters will get combined, scenes will get combined, and then just huge storylines from the novel will get omitted. That's generally what happens because you just don't have enough time, unless you're turning it into a TV series. But in a movie, you don't have enough time to tell the whole 300-page book.
So I guess like the short and the tall of it is, can you make money? So you've made money out of this.
Yes,
but is it more because you already had like a successful career?
Yeah, well, you can make money from optioning the book and turning it into a product, but it's going to cost you money up front. And I think if you had a huge budget, millions of dollars, say $15 million,
of your own,
or that you raise from somewhere else, or wherever you get it from, I think you would need at least that much to go out and say, I'm going to option all these different pieces of intellectual property, and one of them is going to hit. That seems like it would have to be a huge spend. Now, if you're narrowed down on a certain book, it will cost you money. Now, I feel like if you're passionate about the material and it's not a high in demand book, you can get that option for very inexpensive, and then you can write it yourself. And then your cost is almost nothing. But I think in every instance, it's going to cost you money up front. You're going to turn this monetary asset into a paperback book, and then you're going to get that thing made. And then eventually you can turn this piece of art or this piece of entertainment back into an asset. You can get
it just
done
has
like
to be
that.
a solid script. Doesn't matter who's writing it. But if you're not a writer or you're not coming from the industry, you'd want to get someone who can write at the very least.
That's obviously, it's a craft that requires a lot of training, and it's like to do it right?
Yeah.
So I think if you've written nothing, but you are so educated on what makes a story work and you write it yourself, I feel like that's going to work no matter what, if it's a great script. But I will say that if you are pitching it and trying to get a big director so you can then get Leonardo DiCaprio attached, who's only going to work with the top 5 directors, you also need a name-ish screenwriter, because agents and actors get approached all the time and they get handed screenplays, and it's so hard to get people to read your screenplay. So if it's based on a book that they know, that's one step closer to get them to actually read the screenplay. If it's a book that they know and there's a name from a writer who's written, say they wrote the pilot for Watchmen, it's like they're probably going to read that. I mean, they're going to put it to the top of their pile. Whereas if I send them a script that has somebody they've never heard of, it's going to go to the middle of the pile, and it's going to take them a long time to get there. But if they get a script from a known writer, they're going to read it immediately. So,
do you need an entertainment lawyer from day one, or can you start a free template already paid? Yeah. Do you need a lawyer?
I would highly suggest not having a lawyer when you're, especially for checking availability. Like, first do the legwork yourself to see if it's available. It'd be hard to find a lawyer that wants to do that, and even if you did, lawyers are expensive. So I think that the individual who's interested can figure out if it's available. At the point where you make contact with the agent or the publisher or the author themselves, and you feel like it's actually can happen, I would bring on a lawyer to close the deal 100%, because Their job is to cover anything and everything that could happen with that transaction or with that movie or with that whatever you're making. And they're gonna know all the things to cover. And I mean, that will cost anywhere between $1,000 and $25,000, just depending on what level of attorney that you're looking for. But really, you just need somebody to, if you can negotiate the deal yourself, or they can negotiate it for you. But either way, you would definitely need a lawyer at the time it's time to paper that contract and turn it into an actual agreement.
What is the difference between a shopping agreement and an option?
So a shopping agreement it's a little informal with a shopping agreement. It's a good start though. There's an option is solid. Like with an option agreement, everything is spelled out. If you turn it into a movie, you're gonna pay me this much and I'm gonna get this credit. If you turn it into a TV show, it's gonna be this much. If you turn it into it'll literally give you the difference between a 30-minute TV show and a 60-minute TV show and what the compensation to that author will be, because it changes depending on what you're doing. It'll cover if you can turn it into a stage play, if you can turn it into a radio show, it'll cover all those things. Where shopping agreement is usually like a 1 or 2 page agreement that's very casual, and it's usually like you can pitch this to other people. It's like if you don't want to spend money on something, shopping agreements are typically free, and it's just the author saying, yeah, you can pitch this to somebody. And usually in the shopping agreement, it is specific, because if they're giving you it for free, it's usually because you say, or I have a great relationship at Netflix, and I think Netflix will be interested in this. So the shopping agreement will say, you, Shari, have the right for 3 months to pitch this to Netflix. And if Netflix actually gives you interest, then we will agree in good faith to negotiate an actual agreement later on. So it's usually a very casual thing based on the precedent that you have a relationship that the author's interested in, and they're gonna let you go pitch it to that one place or those 2 places. Unless if you're after something where the author's completely unknown and they probably have nobody looking for it, then they might sign a shopping agreement that's more like an option that gives you more rights. But typically, if they're signing a shopping agreement, it's kind of non-binding to an extent.
If the author or let's just say the poet or whoever is dead, it's their estate. How would you, like for example, Shakespeare, but I think that's already...
That's public domain,
But that's public domain, so anyone can do a Hamlet or a Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Just their own adaptation. Okay.
Yeah. Or you can do it straight from the book. I mean, I forget it's somewhere around 100 years. Everything goes into public domain. And that's also different countries. But there's like a public domain registry online where you can see all the public domain things. And sometimes I check it. I used to check it when I developed more, like once a year, because you could see what becomes public domain that year. And there's usually some interesting titles on it. And in that case, you don't need any agreement. You might need a attorney's opinion that just verifies that it is in the public domain, because a lot of banks and financiers and distributors are pretty conservative. So they would sometimes want an opinion from an attorney saying, yes, you're free to make Wicked based off of Wizard of Oz. But in general, you're free to make any public domain material that you want to make.
Well, if you're like a beginner, like a newbie, what would your tips be apart from having money? Or you don't even have to have money.
You don't have to have money. I would say in this order, kind of the 5 things that you would do is first pick something that you absolutely love and that you're really passionate about. So identify whatever the source material is that you want to turn into a movie or a TV show or a comic book or something like that. And the first step I would do is I would go the traditional routes, and I would contact the publisher and or the agent, because that's going to be the most direct path. Now, if that doesn't exist, then the third thing I would do is I would go hardcore internet sleuth and start finding relationships that that author has to try to track down their estate or the current rights holder, with the internet and AI is pretty easy to do. Find that person's thing and then just stalk them in an eloquent and non-menacing way. Write a letter, explain what you're looking to do, why you're looking to do it, why you're passionate about the estate's material, and what you want to do with it. And that person you will have success in that because somebody owns the rights. So at some point you will find somebody who has the rights. And then once you start a relationship with the rights holder, whether it's the author themselves, I would make sure that you can make a deal with them to make what you want to make, and then contact an attorney to write up the paperwork for the deal. But I would bring in the attorney right at the end, tell them everything that you want to do, and then they'll basically finish it and get the signature on the piece of paper. Yeah.
And then after that, write it yourself or get a screenwriter.
Yeah, after that, decide if you want to write it yourself, decide if you want to hire a screenwriter.
Okay.
And then now you have a actual product, and then you just have to decide if at that point you wish to attach more people, which would be, the order would be after you have a screenplay, attach a director, and then attach an actor. I would say in this order, kind of the 5 things that you would do is first pick something that you absolutely love and that you're really passionate about. So identify whatever the source material is that you want to turn into a movie or a TV show or a comic book or something like that. And the first step I would do is I would go the traditional routes, and I would contact the publisher and or the agent, because that's going to be the most direct path. Now, if that doesn't exist, then the third thing I would do is I would go hardcore internet sleuth and start finding relationships that author has to try to track down their estate or the current rights holder, with the internet and AI is pretty easy to do. Find like that person's thing and then just stalk them in an eloquent and non-menacing way. Like, write a letter, explain what you're looking to do, why you're looking to do it, why you're passionate about the estate's material, and what you want to do with it. And that person you will have success in that because somebody owns the rights. So at some point you will find somebody who has the rights. And then once you start a relationship with the rights holder, whether it's the author themselves, I would make sure that you can make a deal with them to make what you want to make, and then contact an attorney to write up the paperwork for the deal. But I would bring in the attorney right at the end, tell them everything that you want to do, and then they'll basically finish it and get the signature on the piece of paper.